became a young mom, and that really kind of shattered my whole world. It shattered my whole worldview of my future. And here I am having kids. So I was determined to complete my goal no matter what.
Yeah.
Yes, I was the mom. It was weird and foreign to me, and I loved my kids, but it took a minute for that role to really grow on me.
As I got older, I'm like, man, I'm gonna get this money. I'm getting this money, and that was all that was in my head. Like, man, I need to get this money. Sometimes we didn't have light, sometimes we didn't have heat, sometimes we didn't have food. The summer before it's time for me to go to college, it was this girl in my class, and she sat right across from me in the classroom. And this girl, she was pretty. She's a pretty girl that was in my class, really beautiful. And then we kind of had to work with each other on this project. And I was like, oh, this girl's actually pretty cool. So she was too good for my buddy. So, and
who was this baby mama, Trey? Other women right in front of me.
So anyway.
You know what? Let me give you the 7 forms of wealth. The first one is.
So, hey, everyone. Welcome to our very first episode of FAFE. That's right. I said FAFE, not faith. FAFE. You know how people say it wrong. So that's
you people.
So that's family and financial education. So the family and financial education.
That's right. With the basis on our faith. Isn't that right, Trey?
That's right.
Faith in Christ.
We're so excited to kick off this podcast to kind of share with you guys our experiences. And we want to talk about some complex subjects, some things that aren't really taught in school, some things that you may never heard of before, things that may go against your beliefs that you have now. But we want to challenge you to think about, what do I really believe in? Like, and where did I get these beliefs from? And then is there anything that you could change in your belief system that could help you start to attain the things in life that you really want to attain? So in other words, people want to transform their lives, and they say they want to transform their lives all the time. So what does that look like? What actions do you need to take to transform your life? And me and Joyce have been together for a really long time, and we've done lots of different things, and we've gone from everything from poverty to what we would call wealth. And we want to help other people be able to achieve the same thing. So what do you think, Joyce?
Yeah, guys, we're just at a point in our life where sharing everything that God has brought us through is pretty much mandatory in our life. You get to a point where you have so much testimony, you have so many stories, you have so many experiences that learning from each one of them is invaluable and is extremely can really help other people that's still going along in their journey. And again, we're family and financial education on the basis of our faith. So I was like, I can't even say it the right way anymore. I'll be with a lisp on this for a while. Our journey from high school, we met at a very, very young age, had a family really young. That's a whole story. And we'll share it with you as we go along. But just starting a family really early, learning the value of what it is to be a mother, a father, even though I didn't have a mother in my life. I had a great dad, and Trey had some struggles in his family household as well. But just the journey of valuing our marriage, putting God in our marriage, putting God at the forefront of raising children, starting multiple businesses together, no college degree, because we had a family young, right? And now we're at the point of we're sharing our journey and our successes and failures with other people.
Yeah. So Joyce, let's talk about that for a minute. You refer it back to when we were, first getting together. Because we've been together for a long time. It's been a long journey, right? Since high school, since 1992.
You took me off the market early. Did that on purpose.
So since 1992, right? So tell people about that journey and, how it started off and just briefly. You don't have to go into every detail, but we both came from broken homes. We really didn't have any wealth in our family. Matter of fact, I remember being pretty poor, as a kid. So take people through, maybe our mindset and what we had to go through to kind of get where we are right now.
Sure. Yeah, so I grew up mainly with my dad and his family. So my dad was in the military. He met my mom in Seoul, Korea. So yes, I'm half Black and Korean. Nobody can guess that on the streets. But anyway, um, growing up, my dad was a very, very hard worker. And he went to work every day, came home, took care of us kids. And as a military man, was very consistent. He paid the bills. Now, we had some credit card debt. He was renting our house instead of actually buying the house, which he regretted years later. Mom wasn't in the picture at all, you know, absentee mom. So it's just me, my brother and sister, and my dad. My aunt, I had a couple aunts that are very highly educated as teachers, and they always thought that I should be a teacher. But so I said, you know, I'm going to grow up, I'm going to get a good education, go to college, get a job, be a doctor, and just have a consistent, you know, life like my dad did, like my aunt did, being in the military, being a teacher. And so that was my form of success. But yeah, I had a good childhood, just didn't have mom in the picture, and, you know, wasn't walking with Christ as a child. So got into a little trouble every now and then.
So you're saying like the vision for your life was like just the typical vision that everyone else has, right? Yeah. The vision of, hey, I'm gonna go to school and I'm gonna get a job and I'm gonna work as a career. What was interesting is, did you think of kids? And if you had kids, how would that fit into your vision? Like, did you have the vision of being with the kids or more focused on your career? And what did life tell you? Like, what would the world push on you more?
That's a great question. And I'm smiling right now because thinking back, I don't think I ever thought about kids. I don't think I ever thought about kids. I always thought, you know, if I ever got married, I'd be a bomb wife. Like any man would be lucky to have me. Like I knew that, but never thought about being a mom. Probably because I didn't have a mother to role model that for me. Now, when I became a young mom, I'm not going to go into details on this episode, but I became a young mom, and that really kind of shattered my whole world. It shattered my whole worldview of my future completely. It was really, really devastating to me. And I was totally lost, completely lost. All my friends are going to college, and here I am having kids. So I was determined to complete my goal no matter what. Yeah. Yes, I was the mom. It was weird and foreign to me. And I loved my kids, but it took a minute for that role to really grow on me. Yeah. To see the value of being a mother, let alone a stay-at-home mom, worked for my husband. Oh my gosh, that hurt me deeply.
And so what's interesting is, you know, I was born in the 70s, and you know, so in the 80s, you know, I'm like 6 years old, 10 years old, you know, stuff like that coming up, you know, around that age. You know, I grew up in the macho era, you know, where I feel like it's a little different from now. Like, you know, it's not encouraged to be macho, you know, so to speak. So I kind of came up in that era. But, you know, I remember being very young, and you were coming up at the range. I'm only 3 years older than you, right? So we're both coming up, and we have these two separate lives, and it's like God kind of brought us up together on different sides of the mountain, so to speak, and then we met in high school, and we kind of brought our two lives together. But you know, what was interesting is we both had that broken home. You know, we both felt that something was missing, and we both felt that pain. And I think together we were able to build something that was our vision of what a home should be like and what it should look like. So, you know, I think so many people take their lives, and instead of trying to make their lives and what they think it should look like, they reach in that past and get caught up and get stuck
right
in whatever environment or whatever situation that they're in, and believe that they have to stay stuck in that situation instead of understanding like, hey, I can find a partner in life that has the same goals and the same vision as me, and we identify with that vision, And then we just kind of go after that. And we're very purposeful with that. So, in looking at that, I look at that vision, identity, and purpose, that VIP type of situation where, it's just like, oh, and then I think we've done that since we were kids. So just kind of thinking about my past, just the experience with me kind of being with my mom and remembering how my mom got into that really bad car accident, and she started taking those painkillers and those drugs, and she really just got really hooked on drugs. And my mom was a good Christian woman, although she had this really bad thing happen to her and got addicted, but she never lost faith. She never lost focus on God, even though it was really hard for her to keep it together. And I think me watching that as a kid, showed me like, hey, it's no matter how faithful, how strong you are in the Lord, it's still certain actions you have to take.
Yes.
Or even certain actions that you can't take, to help you. So it's not just, just the wealth and the knowledge of God, but it's the wealth and money and wisdom also. So I think at a really young age, I saw that faith that my mom had, but she was missing a financial IQ, part of it. And also I think that led to a lot of the drug use and stuff like that too, because when you're depressed and you're not feeling good about yourself and, things like that. So that's why when we talk about wealth, we talk about 7 forms of wealth, not just one single form of wealth, which is just financial wealth. You have to have the other wealths also. So Joyce, talk about that. What are those 7 forms of wealth that we kind of based our life off of?
Absolutely.
And also, in that, can you mention like how we put biblical principles as the forefront to everything that we do?
Thank you, Trey. And thank you for sharing that. And I love your mom. I had a lot of conversations with her, debates when I wasn't in Christ, grew up in the church, so to speak, with my aunt and grandmother, but really I didn't get it. And your mom took a lot of time. We had a lot of conversations. And ultimately I really came to faith. She was a big part of leading me to the Lord, even in her death, by me reading her Bible after her passing. So what led us to our path right now? It is the Lord. It is his word. It is applying his word to not only money, but our marriage. It's applying his word to how we raise our kids and how to be a parent. It's applying his word to how we treat people and how we value relationships and our reputation and our word. So all of these things really plays into that 7 forms of wealth.
Which are?
The first one is spiritual wealth. That means you have everlasting life in Jesus Christ. Because if you don't have...
So Joyce, without going into detail of each one, can we just bullet point the 7 forms of wealth for our audience, just so they can get the 7 forms, and then we can go into detail.
You know what? Let me give you the 7 forms of wealth. And if you want to jot them down, I highly recommend that. We'll go into each one a bit in a minute. The first one is spiritual wealth. The second form is mental wealth, your mind, ability to think. The third form is your physical wealth, right? Health is wealth. The fourth form is your relationships. So that's relational wealth, right? The fifth one is your reputation. Your word can carry a lot of weight and go ahead of you, right? The sixth one is freedom. Freedom is a type of wealth. And there's a lot going on with that. The last one, the very last one, is unfortunately what most people put first. And that is material wealth, which includes money and possessions. That's the last one, the least important.
Yeah. So what we're going to do, guys, is we have an ebook, and you can just download this ebook for free. And the ebook kind of describes the 7 forms of wealth. I think you guys will get a lot of value out of that ebook, because these are some principles that we've learned over the years. I think for me, although I was a Christian and I knew God since, since I was a kid. I never not knew of God, because of my mom. But as I got older, I'm like, man, I'm gonna get this money. I'm getting this money, and that was all that was in my head. Like, man, I need to get this money, because just kind of talking about our story, I mean, so I just remember being maybe around 10 years old. I don't know if you guys have these memories that are kind of like movie clips in your head. And the memory that I have is when I was about 10 years old or so. I remember living with my mom and my stepdad. And my stepdad is my younger brother's father. And, I just remember a lot of arguing, a lot of fussing in the household. It was some abuse in the household. And I really didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up, but I did know that I did not want to be like my stepfather, And like I said, I haven't even heard from him in 30, 40 years. I mean, like, so anyway, I just knew I didn't want to be like that, So as years go past, and the situation with my mom got worse. So me and my younger brothers, we ended up being raised by my grandmother. And I just remember that night, that was the last night with me staying with my mom. It was crazy because, sometimes we didn't have light, sometimes we didn't have heat, sometimes we didn't have food. And it just got to the point where the family was like, hey, the boys can't stay there. This is not a good place for a good environment for us to live. So my grandmother kind of saved our life. If it was only for my grandma, I have no idea what would have happened. And also my grandfather too. My grandfather was awesome. He was like a do-it-yourselfer type of guy. He would always, he could fix stuff. He could build stuff. He was amazing. But a lot of the stuff he couldn't do by himself. So I think he took me in because he needed a helper. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I need people to hold the other end of the wood. You know what I mean?
I don't have to pay the plumber, electrician.
So, yeah. So my grandfather taught me a lot of stuff. Even the way that he treated my grandmother. Also, he's really, really good to my grandmother. He always put her first. He would make the money and just give her the check. And like, hey, take care of everything. And I learned a lot from him. And like I said, he was one of those macho type men that believe like that. Hey, I'm going to hold down the house. I'm going to take care of things. I'm going to, I'm going to be the man of the household. Yeah. And I think I got a lot of that. So
would you say that type of mentality, Trey, is it still prevalent in a lot of men in this generation, maybe a little bit younger than you, or do you see that waning away?
I see it waning away.
Independent woman's, that was my mentality, was the independent woman.
Yeah.
I didn't really need a man or,
Yeah,
my own money.
I see that waning away. Not only are the women wanting to be the man in the house, the men are like, all right, fine, be the woman. I mean, be the man. Men are like, fine, if you want to be the man, split the rent, split the bill, split this. But I mean, in the sports world, it doesn't work like that. You have, let's take basketball. You have two guards, you usually have a center, you have a forward, and everybody has their own job.
Yeah.
Everybody can't be the point guard, or in football, everybody can't be the quarterback. Everybody can't be the wide receiver, so in a relationship, I believe that everybody should have their duty in a relationship, and that's where things kind of go wrong. It's nothing wrong with both people working, but it's still things that need to be done in the household that I think are more apt for a man to do and more apt for a woman to do. I mean, it's just, and I think even sometimes women are confused because now you put that double standard on a man. It's like, okay, well, you want me to protect you. You want me to, do all these different things that you want from a man, but yet you still want to be the man at the same time until it's not convenient anymore. Right.
That's not our fault, Trey. It's Eve's fault. That's the curse, that we will desire our husband, but our husband will rule over us. So it's always a battle to combat authority. And I'm not going to cause controversy now, but I mean, I see it in the pulpits. Women just kind of taking over those positions of authority. And for me, in the spiritual place, and the home is a spiritual type of a role. It's not about being the president of a Fortune 500 company. It's not about that. Get your education, run things, but you're right, Trey. It is a spiritual order to things, a natural order to things, even from the very beginning.
And I think that's where my grandmother and grandfather were very wealthy, just in that, no, they didn't have a lot of money, but I can't say that they were poor, because they were very, very rich in their relationship and their love for each other. And my grandfather taking care of my grandmother, and just, I saw that dynamic, that was awesome. So, fast forward that to now, I've seen how my mom lived, and I saw how my grandmother lived, and my grandfather, and I saw my aunties and my uncles, and they were all married, and they all took care of each other, and I saw them for years and years together. So my form of relationship was not the, I'm gonna find a girl and I'm just gonna be with her, and I'm gonna have 6 baby mamas, and that just wasn't my idea of the perfect scenario. So now in high school, I had this thing like, okay, I don't want to be poor. I want to make money. But how do you get wealthy? And I got the same story, just like you. So now this is where our paths are kind of the same. Get a good job, go to school, K through 12, get a good job.
You're supposed to be an engineer.
Well, yeah.
That's what hooked me in to even give you the time of day in the first place.
Well, I had a scholarship to go to Morgan State University to be an engineer. I had that scholarship. I had my first year paid for. I also got accepted to the Air Force. So I had a choice, Air Force College. I chose college, but then the summer before it's time for me to go to college, it was this girl in my class, and she sat right across from me in the classroom. And this girl, she was pretty. She's a pretty girl that was in my class, really beautiful. And but I really didn't talk to her all year, until we had this one project together. And then we kind of had to work with each other on this project. And I was like, oh, this girl's actually pretty cool. Actually, I was going to hook her up with my buddy, but she was too good for my buddy. So anyways, so we spend our whole summer together. The whole summer we spent together. We had a great time. Probably one of the best summers of my entire life. I don't know if you saw that movie, Grease.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the movie Grease?
Yeah.
Well, I was John Travolta in that movie. She was like Olivia Newton-John. That's how good the summer was. Now, at the end of the summer, though, I got a call from my girlfriend. And what do you think she said on that call?
What she said, Trey?
Some people think that she broke up with me on that call, but that's a different movie. In this movie, she called me and said, I'm pregnant. I'm like, you're pregnant? And she said, yeah. So this changed everything, because now all of my everything from my past, me wanting to be a good father, me wanting to be a good husband, me not wanting to be like my stepdad, seeing the role that my grandfather had, the role that my uncles had, and my auntie's lives, like now it's like, oh, now it's my turn. It's time for me to be this macho man. It's time for me to start showing like, hey, I can run a family. Hey, I can do this, right? But we were both so young, and I didn't know how people would react. But this is around the time when I started kind of, because I really didn't hang out with my father's side of the family too much when I was a kid. So when I started hanging out with my father's side of the family, they always having kids young. Like, my cousins, 16, 17, they got 3 kids already, stuff like that. So when I told them, like my girlfriend's pregnant, like, oh, congratulations. I'm like, for real? Congratulations, And
who is this baby mama, Trey?
The baby mama? I ain't get there yet. I ain't get to the baby mama yet.
Let's talk about other women right in front of me.
So anyway.
So anyway, you said, you pregnant? You had a kid for real? And he was like, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so now it's like, I know that I need to take care of it. So I started looking for jobs. Okay. So I started looking for all these jobs. I'm looking all over the place trying to find a job. But the places that, were hiring, they wanted to pay like $8 an hour, $9 an hour. I'm like, I'm no mathematician, but I'm never, ever going to be wealthy if I take a job like this. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to just make this little bit of money. So I kept looking for jobs. And finally, I found a job at a carpet cleaning business. And I'll never forget, they said that they would pay me not by an hourly wage, but how many houses I clean. And I would get a percentage of the jobs. So I was like, oh, okay, so all I have to do is clean a lot of houses. And the more revenue I make, the more money I'll make on my paycheck. So by me learning that was my eye-opening, but was by learning that, that's when my eyes were open to the opportunity of self-employment. Where I could go out and work and I didn't have to work for hourly wage.
You had to pay for your own equipment too.
Yeah.
Money was coming out of your pocket.
Correct.
You didn't make it back. You was
and that's why I said self-employment.
Right.
Because employment, you get an hourly wage. Self-employment and contracting, you get paid by the revenue that you're bringing into the company. See, I didn't know about that at first. So at first, I'm thinking like, hey, I'm just going to clean these houses. They're going to pay me. But at first I didn't make a lot of revenue. I just cleaned a lot of houses. So when I got my check was only a couple $100 because I had to lease the equipment. I had to pay for all the equipment.
I remember a $54 check.
Yeah, it's like
in particular.
It was really bad.
I don't think I'll ever forget that.
It was bad. It was really bad. So in my head, they were going to pay me by how many houses I cleaned. They were like, no, you cleaned all these houses.
So you really didn't know that at first?
No, they were like, you
Didn't
cleaned all this.
explain that?
They said you cleaned all these houses, but you didn't make any money. I was cleaning people's houses. I was cleaning that whole house for like
$14 coupon.
Yeah, I cleaned that whole house for like $30-$40. I'm like, yeah, all right. I'd go do another house. And I got my check. I'm like, I cleaned a lot of houses. They was like, yeah, but this is all the money you brought in. And then by the time you pay for the equipment and pay for your chemicals,
Your gas.
I'm just like, I didn't even make any money. And it was like, oh, so I had to learn how to work with the customers. I had to learn how to get paid what I was worth. I had to learn how to get paid my value, for coming in, scrubbing your houses. Because people in their head, they're like, oh, I want you to scrub my house for as cheap as possible. And in my head, I'm like, no, I'm valuable.
How hard was it for you to ask for a lot of money?
Oh, it's really hard. Because I was asking for people for money that I wouldn't pay to get my own carpets cleaned.
Right.
It's just like, hey, it costs, $500 to clean this whole house, which was a good price. I mean, these people had 6 rooms, steps. I mean, it'd take me hours to clean that house and I had to scrub it all out. Right. But because I didn't have $500, you know what I mean, to pay somebody to do something in my head. So this is what I mean. This is the mind shift. You see, I had to have that mind shift like, oh, just because I'm not here yet. Now I'll pay somebody $500. I just paid somebody $500 to cut my trees the other day.
Yeah.
You understand my point? But if that was me back then, I would have felt bad asking for $500 to cut those trees. So that's kind of like a mind shift thing.
Big mind shift in your worth. Like you're worth that because of all the hard work you're about to put in, your time and effort and everything. So I remember that with new technicians.
Yeah.
It take sometimes months to get over that mindset that you're worth asking for more money for yourself.
Yeah. The self-worth.
Yeah.
So anyway, after I started getting good at the revenue, the company now wanted me to train other technicians to do the same thing because everybody would go through that learning curve. And so how did I overcome that learning curve? Now I'm training and teaching other people how to go through that learning curve of, hey, this is all your expenses that you have to pay for. You have to overcome these expenses and you have to still, perform for the customer. You have to bring revenue in for the company in order for you to make a good revenue too. So I don't think that was explained to me good. So I felt like that everyone should understand that concept. So I took that training role and made sure that everyone understood that concept of how they could make money.
They got to understand no taxes are getting taken out. So you are responsible for your taxes.
Yes, the 1099 situation. So
right.
just explaining to people about what is a 1099, What is estimated taxes? What is, all these things weren't really getting explained. So I started seeing the holes in this company, and they eventually asked me to be the manager of the company. So now I'm the managing this company. Now I'm the person that's getting the jobs, right? They would give me the jobs and I would give them out to the people that were doing the jobs. Now I get to wear a suit, I'm feeling myself now, right? I get to work in the office as the manager. But I noticed something as the manager though. I was giving these jobs out to these technicians. So my question was, where were these jobs coming from? And it was a lady that would sit over and she would just answer the phones all day long. She would literally book probably, I would say at least 200, 300 appointments a day. It was 2 of them. It would just sit there and book appointments all day long. So my biggest question was what?
What's making that phone ring?
What's making the phone ring? Why is the phone ringing like that? Come to find out, they're just running advertisements. They're putting ads in Valpak, Penny Saver, things like that, well, actually, they weren't using Valpak. They were using these mailers that would go out to everyone's house. They're just mass mailing everybody. So when I figured that out, I'm just like, okay, well, what would happen if I ran advertisements? So I borrowed some money from a friend of mine, and then it's like $10,000. I took the whole $10,000 and I invested it in Valpak, Money Mailer. I think I also used Penny Saver. I bought equipment. Yeah. I also bought, I put ads in the Baltimore Sun because, we're originally from Baltimore. And I just put all these ads on it. Oh my gosh, my phone, it just started ringing off the hook. I was like, oh my gosh, all these appointments. It was amazing. And I think one day, my wife, she said, I booked like 100 appointments. So I came home, she's like, I booked like 100 appointments. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you that girl from the high school, that called me and said she was pregnant. Well, that's my wife to today. That's you.
That's me, guys. I know the whole time you're like, dude, that's so disrespectful. Talking about putting all this airtime in this other woman. Yes, that's right, guys. I told him back then, look, yeah, you can have these 6 chicken heads if you want, or this 1 queen bee, what you want. So anyway, yeah, I have a whole story in my value and my self-worth back.
So when she told me that she booked like 100 appointments that day, that was the story right there. I'm like, okay, so I started hiring all of the people in the neighborhood at this point because I need to get all these jobs done. I only had like a van or 2. And I started buying more vans. I would go to the auction. I would buy vans. I would train the people how to clean the carpet. I would put them out in the vans. Some of these people to today still have carpet cleaning businesses. I showed them from the ground up how to build the carpet cleaning business, how to make, even though I was shooting myself in the foot.
Yeah.
Because some people, they would go and they would end up being my competition. Like, hey, yeah, I got a carpet cleaning business too. They're right down the street.
Trey, did you ever feel like you were mixing ministry? Just your heart would bleed for these young guys in the neighborhood just needing a job, needing to make some money, and nobody would really hire them. But they were open to learn, and they didn't have any guidance. They didn't have any mentors. So how was it trying to still run a business, but still having your heart bleed for people to work?
That's a great question, Joyce. So I saw a lot of people in my neighborhood, they would go the wrong way. Like the attitude was, hey man, I got to get this money. I got to get this money, and so I would see these people around my neighborhood that needed jobs. And like I said, this was in the early 90s where all the rap music was out, all the hip hop, so everybody wanted to hustle. Everybody wanted to get money, and they would talk trash about, hey, I can get this money like this. I can get money like that, So I felt like I was helping and I was kind of saving them from the repercussions because nobody thinks about the risk of that, right? I mean, they think about it, but then like, oh, that's not going to happen to me because I'm so smart. But, I really don't talk about this a lot, Joyce, but if I rewind back to that story, I skipped a big part of it.
What's that?
So I knew that I wasn't going to make enough money working a 9 to 5 to be able to have the lifestyle and the things that I wanted. So I had that same mindset, I'm like, hey man, I can be Nino Brown, I can be, I can be, one of these guys that, just flips for a living. Right. But I was flipping the wrong thing. It's like my mindset was, yeah, if I flip narcotics, then I could make money. And that's what the rappers do. That's what the other people I see, getting money do. And I was pretty smart, you know, I got good grades. I got a scholarship, you know, so I'm not like a street level hustler, you know. I knew how to make deals and travel and things like that. So
Who's gonna be Nino?
Yeah, I started doing that, and I started making money, you know. But then God was like, no, you're not doing this. Joyce, I lied to you not. I got locked up so many times. Like sometimes I would get locked up. I would come home. I would go back out again, and I would get locked up again. I think one time I got locked up twice within the same week. It was like I kept trying to do this, and God was like, no, and I was like, no, I'm not gonna quit. So that stubborn, I'm not gonna quit attitude was working against me because I was like, I'm gonna make this work. The only reason why I stopped is because the judge didn't give me bail. I was beating cases. I was just totally lost. The only thing I could focus on was that one form of wealth, was that monetary form of wealth. And I was willing to sacrifice my spiritual, my whatever, just to, and I would hide that from you. You never knew.
I did not know any of these things.
You didn't even know what I was doing, when I was doing that. You didn't know until I call you like, hey, I'm getting locked up and I'm not going to come home. So now fast forward to now I'm coming home now, looking for a job. And they only pay me $9.50 an hour. That's part of the story that I skipped. Now it's kind of like, okay, look at these other kids in the neighborhood. They're doing the same thing, but I learned that I can make more money than I was making while I was selling drugs. I was making more money with the carpet cleaning business.
Right, and without having to kick out most of your money for lawyers.
Right, without the risk. So I started teaching these guys, like, look, man, there's another way. There's another way we can do this. But the sad part about it is a lot of those guys only listened to me to a certain level.
Yeah.
They felt like, yeah, Trey, I know how to make, $500 a day. I know how to make $600 a day. I know how to make, $300 a day, $200 a day. I don't, forget you, whatever. And I kind of felt betrayed a little bit because I'm just like, man, this is just the beginning of what we can do, So now I know more. Now I know about, stocks. I know about how to flip real estate. I know about buying and selling futures contracts, options contracts, right? I know about building portfolios. I know about Wall Street. I know about all this other stuff, but it's the same thing that I was dealing with when I was a kid. It's just like, I'm trying to teach people this stuff, but they're not ready for it yet. They're just not ready for the stuff that I'm trying to teach. So one of the things I like about this podcast and what we're doing right now is I'm reaching out to a broader net.
Yeah.
I'm reaching this net out broad. Like instead of me trying to force this on people that don't even want to know it, I want to talk to the people that want to know it. I want to talk to the people that are like, hey man, I've been asking for this. I've been praying for this. And then I was watching this podcast and I saw you, Trey, and this is what I've been praying for. That's the person I want, not the person that I'm trying to force feed this, down your throat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the point, of this podcast. And it's not just about making money. It's about all 7 forms of wealth that we mentioned. So gotta download that ebook, and this is just episode 1. We'll get deeper into the story. But, when I think about everything that built us up to this point, it's just amazing that God had this all planned out, from the beginning. I had no idea, that life would be like
We
this.
had no idea life would be like that. And I will say there's a vivid memory I have. And it was us hanging out. And I remember this was after, this was before you got locked up. But I remember asking you, because you weren't in school anymore, for engineer. I was like, so what do you want to do? What do you want to be? He was like, I want to be a millionaire. I was like, okay, great, but doing what? That's not a thing. You're like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I do. I just want to be a millionaire. I'm like, okay, but that doesn't make any sense, Trey. And I had a mindset where that path, there was no steps. There was no checklist. How do you get from 0 to a millionaire? Where are the steps? Like that was never demonstrated for me. The only path I knew my dad would drive me around in nice neighborhoods would be oh, they must be like a doctor or a lawyer or something. Being a business owner, entrepreneur never really crossed my mind. I hadn't been exposed to that. And I credit that painful mind shift to you. God used you to change my mind in a lot of ways, you know. Me having to finally wave the white yield flag to surrender to God, having 2 small children, still wanting to go back to college and work to make my own money. But here you are starting your carpet cleaning business, needing help. But I'm like, I don't want to work for you. I want my own paycheck. I want to go back to school. I want to get back on the track I was before I had kids and was with you. And it was painful. Like my body started hurting. I just could not do it. I could not keep up. And eventually I just cried out to God, like, fine, God, what do you want me to do? You want me to just, you know what? I surrender. That's it. It's not about me and what I want, my goals, my career, my money. It's, you know what? I'm just going to take one for the team.
Yeah.
It's take one for the team. It's not me. It's my family. So all my education I've had up to this point, fine, I'll teach my kids. I'll pour into my children. I'll help Trey. And I thought about it. I was like, well, Trey's going to hire a secretary. And I've watched so many movies growing up, like, well, the executive always has affairs with the secretary in the movies. I said, I'm not having that. I need to be his secretary. So, guys, that was a big mind shift for me. Like, I don't need you chasing somebody behind the desk unless it's me. I don't need you going out to work lunches unless it's me. So I really forgoed and gave up my goals because my new goal was to be with you. My new goal was to sustain our marriage, our relationship, to not break up our family, to raise our kids together in the same household. And if that meant helping you to achieve your goals, then that's what that meant. And since I laid that down, I became vice president of everything that you do. And that's why today we do the same thing. We teach people how to trade and invest. We manage our real estate together. We manage our assets together. We raise our kids. Now we have 5 children, 4 grandchildren. So family is huge to us, you know? And teaching together, traveling across the country, sharing our journey and our experiences with people that need help, that need guidance. It's like I said, God has given us more than we could have ever asked for. So I'm grateful.
I remember that conversation you mentioned earlier when you asked me what did I want to be, and I said a millionaire. I think that goes back to vision, identity, and purpose.
Yes.
You know, once again, because I had that vision, and I didn't know how I was going to accomplish the vision, but I knew I had that vision. I already had failed at the drug dealing, you know. Or actually, probably when you asked me that, I was in the process of that, right? Yeah. So I think when you asked me that question, my plan was, you don't know what I'm doing, but it's happening. I was actually pretty mad at you when you laughed. Like, I just remember you.
Yeah.
You know, I remember you kind of laughed at me a little bit, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna prove her wrong. And then when I got caught, like we'll save that for another episode.
Yeah.
Tell that story. But anyway,
but VIP's vision, identity, purpose changes.
Yeah.
And that's that mindset shift.
Yeah, because I identified as somebody that's going to do what they need to do.
Yeah.
Even if it was breaking the law, right? I identified with that. But when you laughed at me, I was just like, yeah, I'm prove her wrong. And then that failure and that, you know, just sitting there for, you know, having that 5-year sentence and just sitting in jail, just waiting. It gave me a lot of time to think and repurpose that vision. Repurpose that identity and realize who I was. You know, I got a lot of, you know, you're not supposed to be here. Like, why are you here? Like, when I would start talking and, you know, talking to people and, you know, we start kicking and stuff like that. Like, a lot of my friends, and it's really good people, you know, in prison, believe it or not. But anyways, they were, you know, I'd be like, bro, why are you here? Like, you're not one of us. You're not like us, you know? And I got a lot of that, you know, even from the judge that sentenced me. It's like he saw something in me and he felt like I needed to be punished for me to stop what I was doing. He was like, that's probably like the only way I would stop. And he was right. And just coming to that realization that it's ways to do it
Yeah.
the right way. But it was no one there to teach me. There was no one there to show me. It was no one there to guide me. And it was just the rap music pushed on me, and just everything in the neighborhood just pushed on you, where your vision is just tainted, and you can't really see the way to go. So I guess what I'm saying is, when I started the carpet cleaning business and I started seeing that money coming in like that, and you were helping me, do that. And, we started making over $1 million a year. It was almost like, ha, I did it. I did it. Right. But I still didn't become a millionaire though, even though I was making over $1 million a year. So I think that was another wake up call. I was just like, okay, you can make $1 million a year. It doesn't make you a millionaire though. So how do you make $1 million and keep $1 million? How do you keep some of that money that you're making, 10% of it, 100,000 a year? How do you keep 20% of it? And then how do you make that money grow? That started being my next thing, because
it's a new chapter.
Yeah. Because I didn't want to employ. I knew that. I was in self-employed. So now I'm just like, oh, I need to become a business owner. I need to own the business, not work the business. I think that was my next realization. And then my next realization is investor. How do I invest that money, and how do I grow that money? I remember this one time when we had rent due, and you're like, Trey, we got to pay the rent. I said, I'm not paying the rent. And you gave me this look like, what do you mean not paying the rent? I was like, I'm going to spend this money on ads.
I said, I got to flip it first before I spend it.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to spend this money on ads. You're like, well, you spend the money on ads, we're not going to pay the rent. And I was like, yeah, I need to flip this money first before I pay the rent. So pay for the ads, go out, clean a bunch of carpets, and then I'll pay the rent. I don't have money for the rent, and I don't have extra money. So that concept that some people don't understand is something that I understood from the beginning.
You know where you got that understanding from? The fact that your grandfather had you out there in that garden. Because how can you reap a harvest if you spend the seed money?
Yeah.
I remember you talking about that and tying those concepts together.
Yeah, because I call money seeds. Money, that's what money is. Money is seeds. So if you take the seeds and well, just put it like this. Let's say you have fruit and you eat the whole fruit and you eat the seeds. Now what? Now you got to go buy more fruit. But if you eat the fruit and keep the seeds and you plant the seeds, then you'll grow more fruit. And every time you grow more fruit, you'll have more seeds. So you got to, and seeds is an analogy for money, you see? So as your money grows, you'll make more money, but you have to take part of that money and use it for seeds again. Mm-hmm. Because if not, you'll end up spending all of your money. You have no seeds. And now you're right back, to square one.
Concept of reinvesting.
So most people want to like, okay, I want to be a millionaire or whatever, right? Okay, for what? To spend $1 million? So let's say you had $1 million. Would you spend it on what? See, that would be dumb. If you have $1 million, you should just, make 10% off of it, or 5%, because now you got $50,000 a year. But see, you wouldn't want to live off of $50,000 a year because in your head, you have $1 million. And that's where people mess up. It's like, okay, if you have $1 million, you have $2 million, live off of 10% of that, or live off of the interest on that. Live very, very frugally, and that money will last and grow. But if you just want to buy a bunch of stuff, then it's not going to, because the advertisements are very strong in our country, right? They hey, buy this and it'll make you feel good. Buy that, it'll make you feel good. Hey, buy this and it'll make your life happy. Hey, if you only had this, if you upgrade, you'll have this. So you're attaching your happiness and your joy to the materialistic items that you have. You're not focused on the 7 forms of wealth. You're just focused on the materialistic version of that wealth. So when you have your vision originally to say, hey, my vision is to have these 7 forms of wealth. So let me identify as a child of God that wants me to have this. Let me understand that my purpose is to be fruitful and multiply and follow the golden rule. Mm-hmm. It simplifies life.
I love that, Trey. Simplify this crazy life. How do you do that? Well, it's all there in the Word of God. And that's what we choose to base our principles off of. It's called having a biblical worldview. And unfortunately, There's too many people, too many Christians, I'll say, who do not have a biblical worldview. Their worldview is really based upon world and what's acceptable politically, what's acceptable culturally. The Bible is just, it's an old book. It's got good stories and good stuff. And I do believe in Jesus, but the word isn't studied and it's not applied to every aspect of their life, even down to how they vote in elections, So that's what we're going to be talking a lot more about, is raising our children, our grandchildren, keeping our marriage strong, running companies, investing in real estate, the stock market, futures, forex, options, different asset classes, and doing it with a biblical perspective, right, Trey? Because if we don't honor God with all of our gifts and talents, then there's biblical reason that you're not going to receive any reward for it after this life. So everything's God's anyway. Just use it, be a wise and good steward while you have it, while it's here, because life is too short, right?
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a minute, Joyce, about life being short. The Bible says, I believe as King David said, life is but a vapor, right? And we're just sojourners, here on this earth. So when you think of it on that perspective, when you called me and told me you were pregnant, to that day, right now, our son, Trayshawn, is out on carpet cleaning jobs, servicing the customers, and a lot of those customers we built over that 30 years of being in the carpet cleaning business. And we were able to give that legacy, to our son. And so that investment that we made is actually paying off as a form of legacy. I mean, he's 31 years old now. I mean, and look how far we've come with that business. And then our kids, when we moved to LA, that's another story we have to talk about on another episode. What took us from Baltimore to Los Angeles pursuing the acting career with the kids, that took a lot of faith as well, for us to do that. And even for, so our kids, so let's just name the kids real fast. So we have 5 kids. The oldest is Trayshawn, and then we have Malay, which is our daughter, second, that we had, and then third is JB. And we call that our big 3, our first 3 kids. And then we took a big break. We took a big break from kids. And then Joyce, said she missed the baby stage because, she was a stay-at-home mom, and things started getting, I guess, too boring.
That's not what it is.
Right.
But anyway, keep going.
So she made me have more kids. So, I did what I had to do, no more TV. And we had 2 more kids, and they're 15 and 14 years old now.
Yeah, Ariel and Lillian.
Now, one of the interesting things is when we moved to Los Angeles, I still had that urge to figure out how I could make that 10% or that 20% a year to be able to live off of, the capital, just live off of my capital. Along with owning real estate properties and things like that. So that was the whole bigger vision for what I was doing. So anyways, so we can have something for that next generation to be able to pass on to them.
Is it biblical to leave an inheritance to your children and your children's children?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. So not only are we trying to build wealth in a form of money, we also want to build that wealth and assets. If you read the Bible, it says that, Abraham and Jacob and, these guys, they had a lot of money? No, it says they had a lot of sheep. They had great wealth and, in items and assets. And that's the same thing. So when we get our wealth, should we keep it in cash? Or should we take that cash and invest it in things that are going to help people, like housing, or help companies and businesses that we believe in? Or how can we buy businesses low and sell these businesses higher and make profits? How do we make portfolios? How do we get trust? What's a real estate trust? What's an S corporation? What's an LLC? Like who's teaching people this? Like just everyday people, I went through a lot of education. I paid a lot of money to a lot of mentors to learn these various things. And I get so excited when I learn these things, and I try to teach it and tell it to people that really don't want to hear it. So it's really refreshing to get people that want to hear. So Joyce, as I was going through my pursuit of this wealth, so to speak, and you watched me, well, like, tell me how you perceive this, like watching me go from, a student of learning how to acquire wealth, how to acquire real estate, how to acquire a portfolio, how to do these different things. And you saw me go through these different emotional stages. Like, so as a wife, and watching me go through this roller coaster, what was it like from your perspective? I mean, all the way to me being an instructor now and teaching people for 10 years how to do this.
That's a great question, Trey. And from a woman's perspective, one that was raised to value education, one that was raised to value making my own money so that I don't have to rely on anyone, right? But I still valued family. Watching you go through that process really, really grew me to appreciate the other forms of wealth. I was zoomed in on a prideful perspective, right? How smart I can be and what title of education level that I can have and how much money I can make. And I always saw myself buying a big house. That was kind of the extent of it. It wasn't much past that. I enjoyed playing sports and watching TV and hanging out, had my hobbies and stuff, but wasn't much past that. So for me as a woman, being that helper. So when I learned biblically about what it means in the Bible to be a helper, that helper is it's a military term, right? That's a very powerful biblical term that's equivalent to how the Holy Spirit, God himself, helps us. It's like the superhero swooping in when someone cries out for help. And I had to learn my identity, my vision, my purpose, my identity through the Lord himself teaching me that. And it was a struggle. It was not an overnight mind shift. But for me, as long as I was helping you, I was really helping myself. As long as I was helping you, I was helping my children and the stability of my household. And you promised me a long time ago, you said, Joyce, if you help me with this carpet cleaning business, when you want to go back to school, I'll just pay cash for it. And you promised me that. And yeah, years later, I was able to go to Bible college. Then we went to the trading school together to learn how to trade and invest. We did both those things together. And then I had an art education. I'm a professional artist as well. So anything we want to learn about, we pay for it. And so you follow through on your promise. And for me as a wife, even though often the businesses that you would start is not something I'm passionate about, right? It's not even about that. It's about, well, if something happens to you, my husband, shouldn't I know how to take care of everything? Isn't that my inheritance, my legacy as the wife? I'm going to get what we have. And now everything's on my shoulders. So if I choose to stick my head in the sand and only focus on me, what I like, and I'm not involved in everything that you're doing for our family, how is that being a good and wise, faithful steward of everything that God is blessing us with? Even if I don't want to run the company, I can hire somebody to run the company. I can know how the company should be ran so I won't get ripped off. If I want to sell the company, I'll know how to do that. So if I want to manage our portfolio and positions, I'll know how to do that without screwing up. So yes, I went to trading school with you, and I also became an instructor as well. And we're just kind of doing this life thing together. That's what a marriage is. It's a partnership. And we're best friends. And we still love each other. And we go out on dates and we spend plenty of time together. So we'll talk more about the importance of how to work with your spouse if that's something you choose to do, but still hold your marriage together in a very, very strong and loving way. Well, it was a lot, and we can unpack more of that in the next episode, Trey. But hopefully, you guys out there listening, can identify with at least part of what we're saying. And if that's you, if you see yourself in some of our story, then hey, hop along for the ride, hop along for the journey. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear feedback from where you're at and, what the Lord has done in your life as far as blessing you with your family, blessing you in your finances, and ultimately growing in your faith.
So before we wrap up today, I just want to leave you guys with something practical. We all want results in our life. We know what we want the result to be. And we all know that there's certain actions that we have to take to get the results that we want to take. But what comes before what we must do? What comes before those actions? It's what you believe. It's your thoughts. It's your mindset. It's your attitude. It's your bias. I mean, I could start telling you guys how to do real estate deals right now. I could start saying, hey, this is how you do real estate deals. Hey, guys, hey, this is how you start a carpet cleaning business, or this is how you start any business. Okay, fill in the blank. I pretty much can give you a blueprint on how to start a business. I can give you a blueprint right now on how to trade and invest. I can give you a strategy. I can tell you everything you need to do, but you won't do it. You won't do it. You won't follow through. And you think you would, because the mindset has to come first. The vision has to come first. The identity has to come first. The purpose has to come first, because what happens is we have our past, the things that we experience to bring us to where we are right now. But then we have a future of where we want to go. But if you don't know how you should think and you don't know what you should believe, there's no way you're going to take the right actions to get the results that you're looking for, because we have these thoughts that we think are the right things to do. But if no one has ever coached us or taught us or mentored us and showed us these things, you won't actually know exactly what to do. So we're going to do this series here. This is episode 1. We're going to do 12 episodes, just kind of breaking down each part of our mindset and how we had to go through these mindset shifts to kind of get to where we are today. And basically, we believe that we are very wealthy. That's my belief, that I'm very, very wealthy, very wealthy in Christ. And am I Elon Musk? Am I a multi-millionaire? Do I have Lambos and, and mansions and stuff? No. But I spend plenty of time with my wife. I spend plenty of time with my kids. We don't need for anything. We have portfolios. We have real estate. We have security in both materialistic things. We have security in Christ and our salvation. We have our 7 forms of wealth. Don't forget to download that ebook and check the notes. And guys, if you like this episode and you like what we talked about, hit that subscribe button. Follow us. Follow these episodes as we go through and give us some comments. Let us know, like, hey, Trey, I totally disagree with you on this. You know what I mean? You suck, bro. I think that this is better. Like, maybe I'm wrong about something. I don't claim to be right about everything. So if there's some truth you want to give me, like, give me that feedback. Or if you just feel like, amen, brother, amen, just let me know that too. Amen. So Joyce, in closing, what would you like to leave your new audience with?
The fact that I love you guys, and I'm so grateful and blessed that the Lord has brought me to this point to have the courage to share my voice. And this is just my testimony. This is my story so far. And I just give God all the glory and honor and praise. And without him, I would not be here. Without the Lord and Christ, I would not be here. Without my family in the faith, I believe I wouldn't be here. So I hope in some way that I can encourage you, hope in some way that I can strengthen you in your faith, in your walk, wherever you're at. And I can't wait to talk to you next time.
All right. So until next time, we'll see you guys.